There is something in your house right now that you cannot see. It is not hiding in the shadows. It is not lurking behind a closed door. It is not waiting for the lights to go out. In fact, it has been there longer than any possession you own, longer than any memory you can recall, longer than any relationship you have ever had. It has been there since the moment God breathed life into your soul, and most people will go through their entire lives without ever noticing it. Think about that for a moment. We live in an age where people track their heart rate from a watch, monitor their sleep with an app, install cameras to watch every corner of their homes, and receive notifications about events happening thousands of miles away. We have become obsessed with seeing everything, yet at the same time, we have become blind to the one reality that may matter more than any other. The invisible world, not imaginary, not symbolic, not poetic, real. The Christian tradition has taught for centuries that the visible world is only one layer of reality. Beyond what we can touch and measure exists a spiritual realm populated by beings of extraordinary intelligence and power. Some serve God in perfect obedience, others rebelled against him. And in the middle of this unseen conflict stands every human soul, including yours. The modern world has done an exceptional job convincing people that this invisible reality is either irrelevant or non-existent. Angels have been reduced to decorations, demons have been reduced to movie characters, spiritual warfare has been reduced to superstition. The result is that millions of people now live as though the unseen world simply does not exist. But the unseen world has not disappeared simply because people stopped paying attention to it, and that matters more than most people realize. Because according to the teachings of Christianity, every human being has been entrusted to the care of a guardian angel, not occasionally, not only during moments of crisis, not only when you remember to pray, always. Right now, as you listen to these words, your guardian angel exists in a state of perfect awareness before God. It knows your weaknesses, it knows your strengths, it knows your fears, your temptations, your struggles, and your potential. It has witnessed every moment of your life, every success, every failure. Every prayer whispered in desperation, every tear shed in private, every act of love nobody else noticed. And despite all of that, it has never abandoned its mission. The question is not whether your guardian angel is present. The question is whether your home has become a place where that angel can work freely. Because this is where many people misunderstand the spiritual life. They assume that because angels exist, their influence is automatically experienced. They assume that because God provides protection, that protection is always recognized. They assume that because heaven is present, heaven will always be felt. But the saints describe something very different. Throughout history, the great mystics of Christianity repeatedly observed that while guardian angels never leave their assigned souls, the degree to which their influence is experienced often depends on the spiritual condition of the people they protect. Imagine sunlight shining through a window. The sunlight is constant, but the condition of the window matters. A clean window allows the light to fill the room. A dirty window weakens it. A boarded-up window blocks it almost entirely. The sun has not changed. The obstacle is on our side. The same principle applies to spiritual life. Many homes today are filled with distractions that previous generations could never have imagined. Televisions run constantly. Phones demand attention every few seconds. Social media floods the mind with endless information. Entertainment fills every moment of silence. Prayer becomes occasional. Reflection becomes rare. Stillness disappears. And without realizing it, many people create an environment in which the subtle movements of grace become nearly impossible to notice. The guardian angel remains. The protection remains. The guidance remains. But the household loses the ability to perceive them. This is why the saints spoke about signs. Not dramatic miracles, not extraordinary visions, not supernatural spectacles, but signs that ordinary families could recognize if they paid attention. The first sign is a peace that cannot be explained by circumstances alone. Now, when most people hear the word peace, they imagine comfort. They imagine a life without problems, a life without stress, a life without conflict. But that is not what spiritual peace means. Real peace is not the absence of storms. It is stability within them. Every family experiences hardship. Every household encounters suffering. Illness arrives. Financial difficulties appear. Relationships become strained. Unexpected challenges emerge without warning. Yet there are certain homes that seem to possess something different, something difficult to describe. Visitors notice it almost immediately. There is a sense of calm beneath the struggle. A sense that despite the challenges, something deeper is holding everything together. The family may not be wealthy. They may not have perfect relationships. They may not have easy lives. Yet there is a foundation beneath everything, a spiritual gravity pulling them toward God. The Apostle Paul called this the peace that surpasses understanding. Think carefully about those words. Surpasses understanding. not because it is irrational, but because it cannot be fully explained through circumstances. It remains present when logic says it should disappear. This is one of the most frequently reported signs of strong angelic influence within a household. The saints repeatedly described guardian angels as bringing a kind of spiritual order into the lives of those who cooperate with grace, not by removing every difficulty, but by helping souls remain anchored during those difficulties. Many people have entered certain churches and immediately sensed something different. Nothing dramatic was happening, no choir was singing, no sermon was being preached, yet the atmosphere itself felt different. The silence felt deeper, the air felt calmer, the mind became quieter, the soul became more attentive. The same phenomenon can exist within a home, not because of decoration, not because of architecture, but because of the spiritual life being lived there. When prayer becomes part of daily life, something changes. When scripture is read regularly, something changes. When faith is treated as reality rather than theory, something changes. The home begins to reflect the presence of God, and where God is welcomed, peace often follows. The second sign is a heightened awareness of moral danger. This sign is perhaps even more important today than it was in previous generations, because we live in a world overflowing with temptation. Never before in human history have so many influences competed for the attention of the human soul. Every device in your home contains opportunities for both incredible good and incredible harm. Every screen presents choices. Every platform promotes values. Every algorithm shapes perception. And in the middle of all this noise, one of the primary missions of a guardian angel is to help awaken conscience. Most people think conscience simply tells them when they have done something wrong, but conscience does much more than that. A healthy conscience warns before the mistake happens. It alerts. It hesitates. It questions. It creates an interior discomfort when something is not right. Have you ever been about to make a decision and suddenly felt uneasy? Have you ever entered a situation and immediately sensed that something was wrong even though you could not explain why? Have you ever avoided a conversation, a relationship, or an opportunity only to discover later that doing so protected you from harm? The Christian tradition has long associated such experiences with the influence of guardian angels, not because angels remove free will, but because they help illuminate truth, they help direct attention, they help awaken awareness. Unfortunately, modern culture often trains people to ignore these warnings. We are taught to follow impulses. We are encouraged to satisfy every desire. We are told that discomfort should always be eliminated. As a result, many people slowly lose sensitivity to their conscience. The warning system remains, but they stop listening. And when people stop listening long enough, the warnings become harder to recognize. This is especially dangerous for young people. Children today face moral challenges that previous generations never encountered. Temptations arrive instantly. Corrupting influences travel globally within seconds. Ideas enter homes through screens without permission. In such an environment, a sensitive conscience becomes priceless. Families that cultivate prayer often discover that their children become more aware of these interior promptings. They begin recognizing when something feels wrong. They ask deeper questions. They develop spiritual instincts. And those instincts frequently protect them from dangers they cannot yet fully understand. The third sign is perhaps the most mysterious. It is the pattern of providential protection. Most people dismiss this idea because they assume every event must have a purely natural explanation. But throughout Christian history, believers have noticed something remarkable. A pattern, not isolated miracles, not spectacular interventions, but a consistent pattern of guidance and protection woven throughout ordinary life. A delayed flight that prevents disaster. A conversation that arrives at exactly the right moment. An opportunity that appears unexpectedly. A closed door that later reveals itself as a blessing. A decision that seemed insignificant at the time, but ultimately changed everything. Individually, these events can be dismissed as coincidence. But over years and decades, many faithful families begin noticing how often such coincidences occur. The Bible contains countless examples of this principle. God frequently works through ordinary circumstances. He guides through relationships, through timing, through opportunities, through interruptions, through events that only reveal their meaning in hindsight. Guardian angels participate in this providential care. Their mission is not simply to protect physical safety. Their mission is to help lead souls towards salvation. And because of that mission, they constantly work within circumstances to promote spiritual good. The problem is that most people never stop long enough to notice. Life moves too quickly, the schedule becomes too crowded, the noise becomes too loud, and the evidence of divine care goes unrecognized. This brings us to a difficult truth. Many Christian homes today are spiritually starving, not because they reject God, not because they hate faith, but because they have become distracted. Prayer becomes occasional, faith becomes cultural, the sacraments become infrequent, silence disappears, the spiritual life becomes secondary, and gradually the atmosphere of the home changes. Peace weakens, conscience becomes dull, providence becomes invisible. People feel spiritually exhausted without understanding why. They search for solutions in self-help books, entertainment, success, and distractions. Yet the deeper problem remains untouched. The soul was designed for communion with God. Nothing else can replace it. This is why restoration matters. And the good news is that restoration is always possible, no matter how long prayer has been neglected, no matter how spiritually distant someone feels, no matter how much darkness has accumulated. God remains faithful, the guardian angel remains faithful, the invitation remains open. The first step toward restoration is returning to prayer, not complicated prayer, not perfect prayer, simply prayer, a sincere conversation with God, 5 minutes of silence, 5 minutes of gratitude, 5 minutes of listening, because prayer is not merely speaking, prayer is also learning how to hear. The second step is returning to the sacramental life. The saints consistently taught that grace changes everything. Confession restores what sin damages. The Eucharist strengthens what weakness threatens. The sacraments are not symbols, they are encounters. And where grace increases, spiritual clarity often follows. The third step is reclaiming the home itself. A Christian home should visibly belong to God, not through superstition, not through fear, but through deliberate dedication. Prayer before meals, scripture within the household, a crucifix on the wall, family prayer, conversations about faith. These practices may seem small, but over time they transform the atmosphere of a home. They remind everyone living there that life is bigger than schedules, bills, careers, and entertainment. They remind the family that eternity is real. And when eternity becomes real, everything else begins to find its proper place. As we reach the end of this reflection, I want you to think about your own home, not the ideal version, not the version you present to others, the real version. What atmosphere exists there? When people walk through your front door, what do they encounter? Peace or tension? Prayer or distraction? Hope or exhaustion? Awareness or indifference? If someone were to spend a week in your household, would they leave believing that God is real? Would they sense that faith matters? Would they recognize that the invisible world is taken seriously? Or would they encounter a home that looks no different from the rest of the culture? These are difficult questions, but they are important questions, because the spiritual condition of a home influences everyone who lives inside it. Children absorb it, parents reflect it, relationships reveal it, and over time it shapes the direction of entire lives. The beautiful truth is that no household is beyond renewal, no family is beyond grace, no soul is beyond the reach of God. Your guardian angel has not abandoned you. It has not grown tired. It has not forgotten its mission. Even now, it continues praying, guiding, protecting, and working for your good. The peace of God remains available. The clarity of conscience remains available. The pattern of divine protection remains available. But availability and awareness are not the same thing. The invitation has always existed. The question is whether we will finally respond. Perhaps tonight is the night to begin. Turn off the noise. Put down the phone. Gather your family. Say a prayer. Read a passage of scripture. Spend a few moments in silence. Ask God to open your eyes to the realities you have overlooked. Ask Him to renew your home. Ask Him to strengthen your faith. Ask Him to help you recognize the signs of His presence. And then pay attention. Pay attention to the peace that begins to grow. Pay attention to the warnings of conscience. Pay attention to the small acts of providence unfolding around you. Because you may discover something extraordinary. You may discover that heaven has been far closer than you ever imagined. You may discover that the protection you were searching for was already surrounding you. You may discover that the invisible world is not distant at all. And you may finally recognize what has been standing quietly beside you since the day you were born. Not a stranger, not a myth, not a symbol, but a guardian, a servant of God, a witness to your life, a protector of your soul. And a reminder that no matter how dark the world becomes, no matter how lonely life sometimes feels, no matter how many mistakes you have made, or how far you believe you have wandered, you have never truly been alone, because the God who created you has never stopped watching over you. The angel he assigned to you has never stopped serving you, and the path back to peace, clarity, and spiritual strength is still open. All that remains is for you to take the first step.